The crystal chandeliers of the Chicago Grand Ballroom felt colder than the December wind outside, especially when Elara Vance realized she was, once again, invisible. She stood near a towering, glittering Christmas tree, the scent of pine and warm mulled wine filling the air, but the festive warmth didn't reach her. Outside the grand windows, a blizzard raged against the glass, a perfect reflection of the isolation she felt inside. A classic Bing Crosby song drifted over the noise of the party, a tune so nostalgic it almost hurt. Elara instinctively touched the simple pearl earrings her grandmother had left her, a quiet reminder to own your space, even when you're pretending not to. She was here, as always, as Mrs. Marcus Vance. Her goal for the night was simple: survive the event, support her husband, and not let the irony of the situation overwhelm her. Elara, dressed in a reserved navy gown, watched as her husband, Marcus, navigated the crowd. He was handsome and ambitious, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. His goal tonight was to impress his boss, Gregory Finch. "You look great, honey," Marcus had whispered when they arrived, though his eyes were already scanning the room for important faces. He spotted Gregory and immediately steered them over. Gregory Finch, the company's acting CEO, was holding court near the ice sculpture, his face already ruddy from champagne. He was a loud, self-important man Elara had unfortunately been forced to hire 2 years prior. "Marcus, my man. Glad you could make it," Gregory boomed, clapping Marcus on the back so hard he nearly stumbled. His eyes, however, just glided over Elara. He gave her a dismissive nod, the kind one gives a coat-check girl, before turning his full, undivided attention back to her husband. Marcus tensed. Elara saw it, but he said nothing, offering only a tight smile. Elara slipped away, her invisibility now a familiar cloak. She found a quiet spot by the bar, sipping seltzer water, just as her best friend, Chloe Jordan, appeared at her elbow. Chloe, the company's CFO, was a sharp, stylish black woman, and one of only 3 people who knew the truth. "Girl, what are you doing hiding over here?" Chloe asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Elara allowed herself a small, tired smile. "Just observing the circus. It's strange being here as Mrs. Vance." Chloe rolled her eyes, finishing the thought for her. "Instead of the woman who signs their paychecks. He wants to keep it that way," Elara sighed, glancing back at Marcus, who was laughing too loudly at one of Gregory's jokes. "For his career." Before Chloe could reply, Gregory Finch stumbled slightly, his face flushed, and made his way to the small stage. He grabbed the microphone from the stand, causing a burst of feedback that silenced the room. "Attention, everyone. Attention." A few words from the boss. Chloe grabbed Elara's arm, her expression suddenly tight. "Oh no. He's been drinking. This won't be good. The tension in that ballroom is thicker than the Chicago cold, isn't it? We all have a bad feeling, just like Chloe. If you're already invested in Elara's story and you feel the value in her quiet strength, let us know you're right here with her by commenting with the number 8 below. This is Black Brilliance, where we share powerful stories of resilience and hidden power. To make sure you don't miss what Gregory does next, or any of our future narratives, we would be so grateful if you would subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Your support helps us continue to elevate these important voices. Now let's hold our breath. We're afraid Gregory is just getting started. I'm just saying, Gregory Finch's voice boomed, slurring slightly, that a man needs to be the provider. It's the natural order. Elara felt Chloe's hand tighten on her arm. She remembered her friend's warning. This won't be good, as the knot in her stomach pulled taut. The Christmas music had stopped, and the entire ballroom was now trapped, listening to Gregory's impromptu drunken speech. Elara's eyes found Marcus near the stage. He was standing with a group of senior managers, his face pale, his smile frozen. Gregory, reveling in the sudden silence, continued his rant. "These modern women," he slurred, gesturing expansively with his champagne glass, "they forget their place. They want to compete instead of support." A few nervous laughs sputtered from the senior management team, but most of the room just stared, mortified. Then, Gregory's eyes landed on Marcus. "Take Marcus here. Great guy." He staggered a step closer, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Solid employee. A real asset." He paused, a cruel smile spreading across his face. But I heard his wife. He scanned the room, his gaze landing and then pointing directly at Elara. Doesn't even work. Just sits at home spending his money. The room went utterly, painfully silent. Every eye in the ballroom, colleagues, acquaintances, strangers, turned to Elara. She could feel the heat rising in her face, a wave of humiliation so intense it almost buckled her knees. She locked eyes with Marcus, a desperate, silent plea. Say something. Please. Do something. Marcus just stood there, his face white, a terrified statue. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't even look at Gregory. Instead, after a terrible, stretching silence, he gave a weak, forced chuckle, as if it were a minor joke he didn't quite understand. He said nothing. The humiliation was complete. In that moment, Elara heard her mother's voice echo in her mind, a phrase from her childhood, "Never let them see you break." She straightened her spine. Her expression, which had been pleading, went perfectly calm, almost cold. She turned to a passing waiter, carefully placed her untouched champagne glass on the silver tray, nodded a silent "thank you," and walked out of the ballroom. She didn't run. She walked, head high, past the staring faces and the towering Christmas tree, and out into the hotel lobby. Elara was gone. Marcus was left standing alone in the silence, his wife's humiliation hanging in the air, his boss's laughter starting up again behind him. The click of the condo door's deadbolt sliding open at midnight sounded like a gunshot in the silent, dark apartment. Elara sat on the couch in the shadows, still wearing her navy party dress. She hadn't bothered to turn on the lights, save for the cold, blue glow of the Christmas tree in the corner. She was repeating Marcus's silence from the party back at him, letting him walk into the darkness he had left her in. He found her, a silhouette against the twinkling city lights. "Elara," he said softly, his voice full of a guilt she couldn't bring herself to care about. "Diane." "Elara, I'm sorry." He fumbled for the light, but she spoke before he could. "Don't." He stood in the darkness with her. "Baby, I'm so sorry." He tried again. Gregory was drunk. "He's an idiot." I froze. "You stood there." Elara's voice was quiet, devoid of tears, which somehow made it heavier. "You said nothing. You let him call me an ungrateful woman spending your money." "Your money." "What was I supposed to do, Elara?" His voice shifted from guilt to defensiveness. "Start a fight with my boss? In front of everyone. You were supposed to be my husband." "I'm up for the senior director position," he snapped, the real reason surfacing. "You want me to cause a scene? You want me to throw away everything I've worked for? We have bills, Elara, a mortgage." "Bills?" Elara almost laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "You're worried about bills?" "Yes." His frustration was palpable, a resentment she hadn't realized was simmering so close to the surface. "You don't understand, do you? You've never had to struggle the way I have. You get to stay home, thanks to your grandmother's money, and do whatever you want. Decorate, have lunch, while I'm out there grinding every single day, dealing with men like Gregory. So forgive me," his voice dripped with sarcasm, "if I didn't risk everything I've built for your honor." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly, illuminated by the flashing Christmas lights. Elara stared at him, the humiliation from the party replaced by a profound, crushing realization. He believes it. He resented her. He saw her as weak, as privileged, as less. "I see," she said softly, and in that moment, she felt the final crack in their foundation splinter and break. Elara stood up and walked away from him, pulling her phone from her clutch. She turned her back to him and typed, her fingers moving with a cold precision. She sent a text to Chloe Jordan, her CFO. "We need to talk. My office. 8 a.m. And tell David Brennan I need an emergency board meeting scheduled for next Friday." That text message just sent chills down my spine. The crack in their marriage has just become a canyon, and Elara is finally done hiding. We know you're feeling that righteous anger on her behalf. If you are still right here with us, invested in Elara's story and ready to see her take back her power, let us know by commenting with the number 8 below. This is what Black Brilliance is all about. Stories of resilience, strength, and the moment the game changes. If you haven't already, We truly encourage you to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. You do not want to miss what happens at that emergency board meeting. Your support is what allows us to continue bringing you these powerful and inspiring narratives. Now, let's see what happens when the Real boss decides to go to the office. The next morning, Marcus found Elara in the kitchen, packing an overnight bag. Her expression as cold and gray as the Chicago dawn. Her text message from the night before, the one demanding a board meeting, hadn't been an idle threat. It was the sound of the axe grinding. Her packed bag this morning signaled that this wasn't just a fight, it was a schism. The kitchen was bright with morning light, but the mood was heavy, funereal. The rich aroma of coffee from the machine, coffee Marcus had made, filled the air, but Elara's cup sat on the counter untouched. She was calm, decisive, and finished with hiding. He was exhausted, his guilt hanging on him like a shroud, but he still didn't understand the full scope of what was happening. "Elara, I'm so sorry," he began, his voice hoarse. I froze. "I was an idiot. Please, let's just talk about this. I'm going into the office, Marcus." She cut him off, her voice flat as she folded a sweater into her bag. His confusion was immediate. "On a Saturday? What for?" "Elara, please. Baby, you don't work." She stopped packing. She slowly turned to face him, and for the first time, he saw the depth of the chasm that had opened between them. "That's the problem, isn't it?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You believe I sit at home doing nothing. You believed Gregory when he said it, because it's what you already thought." "No, that's not." "Marcus, Vance Innovations," she interrupted. "Do you know who owns it?" He blinked, thrown by the sudden non sequitur. "What?" "Some investment group, I think, a family trust." "Why does that matter right now?" Elara took a deep breath, the one she'd been holding for 15 years. "I own it, Marcus," she said. "The Patterson Family Trust. It's my grandmother's maiden name. I am Vance Innovations. I built it 15 years ago with the inheritance she left me." His world collapsed in that instant. He stared at her, his face going pale, his mind struggling to connect the dots. "No," he whispered. That's not possible. I work for you." His voice cracked. "You've been lying to me? For 8 years." "I haven't lied," Elara replied, her voice cold and sharp, a surgeon's scalpel. "I just didn't correct your assumptions. I stayed invisible because you told me when we first met that you wanted to build your career on your own merit, that you didn't want to ride anyone's coattails. I gave you that. I built this entire persona of Marcus's wife to protect your ego." Elara zipped the bag shut. The sound was final. "I'm going to my mother's," she said, walking past him. "You need to decide if you can handle being married to the boss, or if your ego is more important than our marriage. Because I'm done hiding." She walked out, leaving him standing alone in their sunlit, silent kitchen. An hour later, Elara pulled into the driveway of her mother's suburban home. She walked up the familiar path, the cold air smelling of pine, and when Lena Reed opened the door, the warmth of the house, the smell of gingerbread and old books, hit her, and she finally let the tears fall. The following Friday, Elara Vance walked into the executive boardroom, not as a guest, but as its owner. The 40th floor room was intimidating, all glass and steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a frozen Chicago skyline. The mood was just as formal and tense. She was dressed in a powerful burgundy suit, her grandmother's pearls at her throat, and she held a single, simple folder. In the corner sat her mother, Lena Reed, a silent picture of strength, echoing the very advice Elara had clung to at the party: never let them see you break. Chloe Jordan, the CFO, and David Brennan, the lead board advisor, were already seated, their expressions carefully neutral. At 9 a.m. on the dot, Gregory Finch strode in, looking annoyed by the emergency meeting. He saw Elara at the head of the long mahogany table and scoffed, his arrogance radiating. "Mrs. Vance," he said condescendingly, "I think you're in the wrong meeting. This is a closed board session. Wives aren't invited." "Sit down, Gregory," David Brennan said, his voice cold. Gregory's sneer faltered, replaced by confusion. He sat. All eyes turned to Elara. She began, her voice calm and clear, filling the silent room. "Gregory, you called me Mrs. Vance. That is my married name, she said. My business name, the name on this company's charter, is Elara Vance. I am the sole owner of Vance Innovations. She slid the trust documents from her folder across the polished table. Gregory's face turned a pale, blotchy white as he stared at the papers. That's not possible, he stammered. You're his wife. That is one of my roles, Elara said, her voice turning to steel. But you assumed it was my only one. You assumed I was, and I believe these were your words, ungrateful and entitled, sitting at home, spending my husband's money. Gregory looked like he'd been struck. Elara continued, Unfortunately for you, your public humiliation of me was just the final, unprofessional act in a long line of misconduct. Chloe Jordan spoke up, her voice sharp. We have documented misuse of funds for unapproved travel, and I have copies of 4 separate HR complaints, all filed by female employees, that you buried. Elara stood up, her movement drawing all the focus. Gregory, your behavior at the party wasn't just an embarrassment. It was the final straw. You used your position to silence complaints and foster a toxic culture that I will not tolerate in my company. She looked at David Brennan, who nodded. The board has moved to terminate your employment, for cause, effective immediately. Gregory slammed his hands on the table, his face turning a deep, apoplectic red. You can't do this. This is a setup. A personal vendetta. Elara looked at him, her expression not angry, but devoid of all emotion. No, Gregory. This is consequences. 6 months later, Elara Vance stood on stage at the company's 15th anniversary gala, this time holding the microphone herself. The ballroom was warm and celebratory, a stark contrast to the cold, tense Christmas party. The last time she was at a company party, she was humiliated and invisible, wearing a simple navy dress. Tonight, dressed in an elegant emerald green gown, she was the main event. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. After the boardroom confrontation, Elara had officially taken the public helm as founder and owner, promoting Chloe Jordan to CEO to handle the daily operations. But the hardest work had happened at home. She and Marcus had started intensive therapy, both together and individually. He had to confront the fragile ego and the toxic provider mentality his father had instilled in him. She had to learn to trust him again, to believe he could see her as a partner and not a threat. Tonight, she saw the results. Marcus was at her side, not in her shadow. He watched her with a genuine, unadulterated pride that had been absent for years. He was the one who proudly brought her drinks, introducing her to clients with a new, easy confidence. This is my incredible wife, Elara. He was no longer threatened. He was proud. Now, Elara looked out at the faces of her company, her mother Lena beaming from the front row. She gave her speech, talking about the company's bright future and its new, foundational culture of respect. I learned 6 months ago that hiding benefits no one, she said, her voice clear and strong. Our success, our talent, should never be something we apologize for. Her eyes found Marcus in the crowd. And I want to thank my husband, Marcus, she said, her voice softening just a fraction, who is learning alongside me what true partnership looks like. Thank you for fighting for us. He raised his glass to her, his eyes shining, a silent promise that he would never be silent again. Elara turned back to the crowd, raising her glass high. Here's to being visible, being bold, and to never, ever judging someone by where you think they sit. Elara's journey from an invisible wife in the shadows to a visible leader on the stage reminds us that what we see is never the full story. It shows us that true worth is not measured by the noise someone makes, but by the quiet, strong foundation they have built. We often judge a person by the role we think they play, forgetting that they are the author of their own entire life. If Elara's story of strength and authenticity touched your heart, what stories of hidden brilliance do you see around you? Share your reflections with us in the comments, and join the Black Brilliance community by subscribing, so we can continue to celebrate these powerful journeys together.